Support comes from Seattle Rep, presenting a bold new season of powerful stories, including the world premiere musical Freak the Mighty, the satire Eureka Day, and the award-winning classic Amadeus. Subscriptions to the 2026-27 season include free exchanges and discounts at local businesses. Visit seattlerep.org.
On the latest Sound Politics, the state legislature has adjourned. So what is your state senator or representative doing now? Their day jobs include lawyering, farming, forestry, even bison ranching. This has been the story since Washington state was born. But now, some politicians on both sides of the aisle think it's time to move to a full-time legislature. We'll talk about it on Sound Politics wherever you get your podcasts.
What are you most afraid of? Spiders? Clowns? The long legacy of settler colonialism that continues to reverberate through our society? Fear takes many forms. I'm Katie Campbell, and this is Meet Me Here, KUOW's Arts and Culture Podcast. This week, we're getting lit with an author who knows fear very well. My fave, Stephen Graham Jones. He has summoned fear in the form of everything from an alien caterpillar to zombie wrestlers. But his latest hit, The Buffalo Hunter, took the horror genre to new heights. That's my opinion. Fight me. Because the novel about a Blackfeet man turned vampire doesn't stop at striking fear into the reader's heart. It begs the question, what can we do with our fear? How do we turn it in our favor? Stephen Graham Jones's work often has this stellar kind of camp that I love. Slasher tropes like the final girl and unstoppable killing machine get a little extra oomph in his hands. But the thing I really appreciate about his work is that those tropes also get some heart. Like his best final girl, in my opinion, Jade Daniels of his Indian Lake trilogy, is grappling not only with supernatural horrors, but also generational trauma and her indigenous identity. Fear becomes something bigger in his work. That's especially true in The Buffalo Hunter. I've talked about this book before, like a lot, and now it's time to talk about it with Stephen, who is with me in the studio now. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, I'm going to get this out of the way so I can be normal. But seriously, thank you so much for talking to me. I'm really super stoked to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Okay, so I do want to try to avoid spoilers for folks who somehow haven't read or finished The Buffalo Hunter yet. But I think we can safely summarize. Your main character, Goodstab, becomes a vampire. It's traumatic. He's not happy about it. You do not romanticize this. But he ultimately finds a way to deal with it by using this curse to get revenge on colonizers who massacred his people. So why did you want to tell this kind of story now?
You know, I don't know if I wanted to. It just happened. I wanted to tell a story about a vampire, and it became all these other things. But I never go into a novel or a project, a comic book, anything with a plan or a sense of timeliness. I think writers, we're like sponges. We sit on the bottom of the sea of the world and things just like sift down and flow through us. And we're not exactly the boss of what we do. We just do it, and sometimes it works.
What was sifting down to you then? Because there is a lot going on in this book.
Yeah, what was sifting down was, well, this isn't from the world. This is probably from my own writing. I realized I'd never written a vampire novel. I've done a werewolf novel. I've done zombie novels. I've done a haunted house. I've done a lot of slashers. I'd never done a vampire novel. I've done a lot of vampire stories, and I always thought there was no need for me to do a vampire novel because there were good ones out there. But then I couldn't stop thinking about this old-timey priest closing his book on a Sunday, his congregation filing out, and one person being sitting in the back. And that was Goodstab, it turned out.
What made you want to go back in time, too, to tell your vampire story?
I think it was just that first image I had of an old-timey priest, because I didn't want it to be like a cosplay thing, like, revolutionary actors or something like that. It was too easy for me to set it back in 1878 or something in the, romanticized Old West. I thought a much more interesting moment was the moment after that when cars were moving in, electricity, phones, all that stuff. I thought it was a nice like crossover point where two different worlds were impinging upon each other.
Yeah. So obviously vampirism has also been used by writers as like a metaphor for colonialism, capitalism, bad things. And that's quite clear in The Buffalo Hunter 2, as Goodstab is bitten by a white European vampire. But what was like a little harder for me to interpret is that this white vampire, dubbed the Cat Man, is caged by other white colonialists when Goodstab finds him. Why is that?
I figure that the Cat Man had become a commodity to be passed around among the elite, and that was what was happening. He had been captured, somehow caught on his trip across the Atlantic, and now was being delivered here to Seattle, actually.
Whoa. Sorry, that I hadn't thought of it as like a commodity. What's commodifying about him?
But he's the only one. He's the rarest thing. He's the only one that they know about, the only weird thing like him. And so when you're unique like that, you're valuable.
Yeah. And so that kind of makes the caged aspect even more interesting to me, like caging of this commodity.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no other way to transport the Cat Man.
Sure.
Because he's quite capable.
Yes, he's very dangerous. I was really struck by the way you have Goodstab ultimately use this curse that he gets from his interaction, let's call it, with the Cat Man. We're often taught, right, that like vengeance is wrong, to seek it is wrong. But here in The Buffalo Hunter, it's quite righteous, like maybe even cathartic. What do you feel about it? What did you feel as you wrote it?
I think, I've dealt with this in the slasher a lot too, and I'll probably always be dealing with it. Revenge feels really good in the moment. It feels like justice, but it generally hurts you as much as it hurts whoever you're trying to seek that justice against. And I think that's what Goodstab finally comes to learn, is that this long vengeance arc he's on, if it doesn't find a way to stop, or if he doesn't find a way to stop it or let it go, it's going to devour him.
I guess if it's devouring him, like you're writing him, right? Mm-hmm. Did it devour you?
I guess Buffalo Hunter took me about 10 weeks to write. It did not devour me. I wrote a book last summer that I felt like nearly did devour me. Some books, like every book is different. Like I remember reading an interview with Gene Wolfe. Someone asked him, they said, "Man, you've got a stack of books. You got to know how to do this by now, how to write a novel." And Gene Wolfe says, "You only ever learn to write the novel you're writing." And I completely agree with that. Every book is different, which isn't to say I don't come at them the same. I come at them with no idea what's going to happen or where it's going to go or anything like that. But then they open up in different ways, and I just have to finally go with it and trust that it's going to get somewhere that might work. Like my favorite moment of novel writing is about 60 or 70% through, when it's absolutely hopeless and I know that there's no way this can possibly tie up. That's when I know that I've got to become a better writer if I'm going to get lucky enough to make this work.
Was it all just kind of coming out in force? Like how do you write something like this in 10 weeks?
If I'd have had to do research, it would have taken me a lot longer. But I had friends who had done all this research previously and had the language in their head. And so I was able to lean on them. They completely helped me. Without them, it would have taken longer than I would have messed with probably. When a book takes too long, I just walk away from it. I figure I need to write other books. I can't spin my tires in this one book forever.
Sure. What kind of research had they done that went into this? I mean, I can guess, but...
One friend, he had written Beneath the Backbone of the World, a history of the Blackfeet, and where he goes back with all the historical documents and stories, probably 300 years, maybe further, just documenting every little development, every little event that he had access to. And another friend teaches Blackfoot language on the Blackfeet Reservation, so he was really helpful with all the compound terms and getting kind of the roots of the words. Another friend had a lot of clippings and letters surrounding the Mariah's Massacre. That was very, very helpful.
Yeah, which was central to Goodstab's story. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't set out thinking I want to talk about the Mariah's Massacre, but I did want to talk about a tumultuous decade and a half in the life of the Blackfeet. And that goes from 1870 to 1874, from the Mariah's Massacre to Starvation Winter.
Well, I want to go back to what we were just talking about with vengeance and how it devours, or how it can devour. But first, we're going to take a quick break.
Support comes from Seattle Rep, presenting a bold new season of powerful stories, including the world premiere musical Freak the Mighty, the satire Eureka Day, and the award-winning classic Amadeus. Subscriptions to the 2026-27 season include free exchanges and discounts at local businesses. Visit seattlerep.org.
Hi, I'm Monica Nicholsberg, co-host of KUOW's economy podcast, Booming. AI chatbots have become unavoidable, but getting close to an AI comes with real and serious risks. On the latest episode, how can we protect ourselves from the risks of AI chatbots? Find Booming on the KUOW app or wherever you listen.
Steven, you're very good at telling stories that scare people, me included. But is there something productive to be done with that fear?
Yeah, I think there definitely is. I was in a dentist office, man, this has probably been 15 years ago, and I think it was a dentist. It could have been an eye doctor. And I was reading a random magazine waiting for my turn, and the magazine, it was a scientific-leaning magazine. It was talking about delivering fresh fish, like from farms to wherever they get turned into food. I don't know how it works really, but they kept putting these fish in these big tanker trucks with water, and by the time they arrived at their destination, hours and hours later, a too high percentage of these fish would be dead, and they just couldn't stay alive. And they tried everything, different types of water, pH, just everything they could think of. Nothing worked until they dropped a predator fish in there in the tank, and then when that tanker truck arrived at the facility, a whole lot more of the fish were alive. And the reason they were alive was this predator fish was swimming among them and keeping them alert. Whoa. Keeping them active so they didn't die. I think that's how fear can work for us too. If we encounter or engage scary stories, they stress us in a good way. I think they make us more vigilant, more aware of our surroundings, and we stay alive not because we're not getting attacked, maybe that, but just because we're more active on the inside, I feel like.
It's like a survival tool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can see, though, I guess, too, it's interesting to hear that framing, which is kind of hopeful. And I look at, the world we live in where fear has been weaponized to a degree, misinformed fear.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like it can be that vigilance, but can the vigilance then become a tool of oppression? Now we're getting maybe a little too meta.
Yeah, no, I think, you're right. It has in the past, 9 years been used in that way for sure. And before then, of course. But let me think, how to avoid that? I wonder how you avoid that. I think you probably avoid it by somehow training the audience to be more critical, to question the art and media they take in a better way.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because when I'm thinking about this framing too, I think about your 2024 novel, I Was a Teenage Slasher, about a teenage boy who becomes essentially possessed by this murderous force that forces him to go on a rampage. And it's really sad and so empathetic. This kid does not want to hurt anyone, but the powers that be turn him into a monster. And it's interesting because it's taking this slasher concept, this unkillable killing machine concept, and making him sympathetic. Why do you tell stories like that from the purported monster's perspective? What does it do for you?
It would have been too easy to tell it such that Tolly, the protagonist of I Was a Teenage Slasher, the narrator of I Was a Teenage Slasher, it would have been too easy to tell the story such that he loved what he was doing, that he just likes to kill. That to me is there's no friction in that. It's like a comic book panel that says, the caption says, I was jumping rope, and the image is someone jumping rope. That to me is wholly boring and just not maximizing the potential. And hopefully I never do that on the fiction page. I always want there to be friction between the content and the delivery, or the actions and the character. And so that's why Tolly is so reluctant and kind of tender, yet doing these over-the-top terrible things.
It also feels like, in much the same way with the Buffalo Hunter, you're challenging the reader to think a little more critically about a monster.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I do think that for the past, let me think, probably about 25 years, we've come to kind of understand vampirism as a superpower. Like, oh, I get bit by a radioactive spider. Now I can do things, and which is, that's great for capes and tights stories. But for a monster story, like a vampire story, I think it's important that vampirism be what you called it, a curse, something that you don't even want a little bit, which is why I try to put Good Stab and the Buffalo Hunter in the worst position I could, which is he wants to be the avenger of his people, of the Blackfeet, the protector, the avenger. But in order to remain Blackfeet, he has to feed on Blackfeet.
Yeah, that was really difficult. Or his efforts to protect the buffalo, as the title suggests, and the way he's simultaneously trying to protect this land that is his and his people's, and having to still take from it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I think that's when you can build a conflict at the center of your, extended story that is fundamentally unsolvable, then it's actually got legs.
Totally. Like you said earlier, you've written about werewolves and zombies and supernatural terrors, now vampires. It makes me wonder, what are you most afraid of, Stephen?
What am I most afraid of? Probably a restaurant menu I haven't seen before.
Oh, no.
I am so unadventurous as far as eating goes. I ate at Chipotle yesterday. I will probably eat at Chipotle at lunch today. What I love about food is sameness and lack of variety, and I'm not really into flavor and taste and all that stuff. I just want something really simple that I can just go, that doesn't make me think, basically.
I was going to say, what have you done with that fear? But it sounds like you've just been able to simplify things a little.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I am the kind of person, I just want to eat the same, boiled egg every day, but I don't like the yolk. I just like the white part. But I also want to wear the same clothes every day, so I don't have to think about that either. I just would rather think about stories and fun stuff than boring stuff like food and clothes.
That's fair. A lot of people are afraid right now for a lot of reasons, right? There's a lot going on in our world. What would you like to see your readers do with that fear? How can we channel Good Stab without drinking blood and all that jazz?
That's a good point. Good Stab in a sense is reminding us that America's footprints to get where they are not clean. They're bloody, And I think if we kind of repress the truth of history, then it's going to rise up all the same, probably worse. It's kind of what I was getting at in Mongrels, actually, with these werewolves who are dismissively called sheep, who try to pretend they're not werewolves and live among humans. But if they don't wolf out once a month or so, then it builds up inside them, and they finally explode and go on a rampage and get killed.
Yeah. They have to acknowledge what they are in order to survive. Again, going back to survival. Feels like survival plays a big part in your books. Yeah,
it does, for sure. I wonder if there's any book in which that's not the crux. I'm not sure.
I guess that's the crux of horror, too, huh?
Yeah, it definitely is. Sometimes it's literal bodily, physical survival. Sometimes it's survival or persistence of the spirit or of identity or of the cosmos. There's all different kind of, levels of it, but I do think it's usually about survival, yes.
I feel a little better being a horror nerd in that context, I guess, that framing. Okay, Stephen, I got one last thing for you. So you know that feeling when you just finished a good spooky book and you're deep in your fear and heck, you just want to stay there because sometimes it's fun. Your adrenaline is high and you're looking around for your machete just in case. And you want another scare to keep you on your toes in case something big goes bump in the night. So this is called Recommended If You Liked Facing Your Fears with Stephen Graham Jones. And this could be books, this could be movies, this could be music you jam out to when you need to pump yourself up before facing the Lake Witch. Whatever you would recommend to folks who really get into your work.
That's a neat way to ask that. Let me think. It's weird when you said any media, the first thing I thought of was the movie Cliffhanger.
Oh, okay.
Because I think Cliffhanger is a pretty perfect film. Cliffhanger is basically a heist film set up in the high snowy mountains with park rangers, or maybe they are actually, I think they're park rangers and also a search and rescue team. There's some lost bags of money. There's a lot of guns. You have to go find this bag of money that's up on this 14,000 foot peak, and lots of really muscly climbing and really tense action scenes. And there's actually a stunt in Cliffhanger where a character goes on a line in the sky between two planes, I believe it is. And I think that stuntman was paid $1 million because they really did it, and it was really not like a thing that was supposed to work, but it worked. And it's, I think, the only time that's been done on film.
That's crazy. I'm terrified of heights, so that's my actual nightmare. My recommendation is also a movie. It's The Blair Witch Project. It was my first real horror movie, and I swear it changed my life. I was 7 when I saw it, and I've been a horror fan ever since. I still watch it like once a year, and I think it totally holds up. People will disagree with me, and I don't care. It terrifies me.
No, it terrifies me too. I remember seeing that in the theater in 99, and it was, for some reason, they let more people into the theater than could be in the seats. And so I had to stand along the side of the theater. But it was funny because it was a Friday night showing, 7 o'clock. My wife and I were there, and all through the theater, parents had brought their infants, their babies. And so there was crying babies all through Blair Witch. It was a neat thing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's when my conspiratorial brain's they did that on purpose. They planted those babies in the audience. For people who haven't seen the movie, it includes baby crying sounds in the woods. That's a horrifying concept. I love it. Well, thank you so much for this, Stephen. This has been great. Stephen Graham Jones is the author of The Buffalo Hunter Hunter and many other phenomenal books and short stories we should mention. Stephen, thank you so much.
It was great speaking with you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening to Meet Me Here. Meet Me Here is produced by KUOW, a proud member of the NPR network. It's hosted by me, Katie Campbell, Dyer Oxley, and Jeannie Yandel. And it's produced by Brandy Fullwood, Kyle Norris, and Matt Martin. Phyllis Fletcher edits the show. You can find more and support the show at kuow.org/meet. And you know the drill. Let's meet up again, y'all.
Support comes from Seattle Rep, presenting a bold new season of powerful stories, including the world premiere musical Freak the Mighty, the satire Eureka Day, and the award-winning classic Amadeus. Subscriptions to the 2026-27 season include free exchanges and discounts at local businesses. Visit seattlerep.org.
Soundside brings you beyond the headlines with news and conversation rooted in the Pacific Northwest. I'm Libby Dankman. Every week I sit down with local journalists for Soundside's Front Page, where we give you a shortcut to understanding the latest news and cultural moments and how they affect us here in the Puget Sound region. It's all here on Soundside, on the radio or streaming Monday through Thursday at noon and 8 p.m. on KUOW, on the KUOW app, or wherever you get your podcasts.